Take it away, Sheila.
Good morning, everybody. Can you hear me? Perfect. Thank you so much for being here this morning. Thank you, Jerry and Jill, for inviting us to present to you this morning. I'm Sheila Ross. I work in development for Canines. I'm going to start this morning by just telling you a little bit about who we are, what we do, and why we matter. And then I'm going to turn the panel over to some other more important, very special guests, including Christine, Lindy, and Andrea. They're going to tell you a little bit about what their roles are within the organizations as either clients or trainers or volunteers. But first things first, Canines started in 1989, so we're in our 34th year. And it was started by a man named Al Peters, whose focus in the very beginning was to adopt shelter dogs and train them for hearing assist work. And in the 34 years of our existence, we've now expanded to 5 different programs. We now train dogs for mobility issues, hearing assist, seizure response, type 1 diabetes, and children with autism program. That is our newest program, and it is by far the one in most demand, which is what we're going to focus on this morning with all of you. But to tell you a little bit about the journey of a puppy. So our dogs, it takes about 2.5 years from our breeding program to volunteer puppy raisers, about 2.5 years to get one of these dogs, like Riggs, who's in final training now, to be ready to be an assistance dog. And the first 2 years of one of our dogs' lives they were raised by volunteers, including about 150 inmate handlers at 7 prison partners in both Minnesota and Wisconsin. So it takes many, many, many hands, many, many lives are being touched by helping to raise these dogs. And so it takes about 2.5 years when they're finally at our campus in New Hope, which is where Riggs is. That's when we make the final evaluation as to what kind of assistance dog he or she might be. And I believe Riggs is going to be a facility dog, which means he is going to be probably working at a children's hospital as part of a child life staff and be going on rounds with hundreds of children. And so he's going to impact many, many, many children in his lifetime. But today we're going to focus on the story of one very special autism assist dog named Lloyd and Christine's son Matthew. But getting back to the training process, it costs about $45,000 in time, resources, transportation costs, fees, all of the things that go into taking Riggs from a tiny little puppy to being ready to be placed with a client. And so that's a lot of money, it's a lot of volunteer time, a lot of resources. And the reason I mention that number is because our single focus and our mission from the very, very beginning is to make sure that anybody who needs an assistance dog would not have a financial barrier. So we give our dogs away free of charge. So even with all of those resources that go into training these perfect specimen dogs, we feel very strongly that our clients never have a financial barrier to receive one. As I said, we're going to talk a little bit about the autism program, one, because it's our program that's in the highest demand, but truly has life-changing impact for a family. And so I could tell you that story, but who better to speak to that experience than a client mom herself. So this is Christine Lamott, and she's going to tell us about her experience with Lloyd.
Thank you, and thank you for staying and hearing about this opportunity. We'll probably go through some pictures here as you see on the screen. And we've had Lloyd for 8 years, or just coming up on 8 years, and so we've had a lot of great stories. 8 years ago, hope kind of drove us to great lengths. Before Canines, our young son had meltdowns that went on for over an hour. He would scratch, kick, claw at anyone around him when he was in a meltdown, including his sister. He would take a couple of hours to fall asleep at night, which led him to not getting enough sleep, which made his behaviors even worse. He was rigid about everything. Nothing could touch him without him being on sensory overload. He had no little friends in kindergarten. If anything, he stood out, and not in a good way. Our daughter Molly, who's in the audience today, who's 2.5 years older than Matthew, She always wanted to go to movies that she saw on TV, you know, the commercials. I want to go see that. She wanted to go to the water park on family vacations, like all of her little friends. Both her parents couldn't go to programs at the same time because someone had to be home with her brother. If she was playing a game with her brother and it didn't quite go the way he thought it would, he would hit or scratch her because it's easier for him to show how frustrated he is, rather than use words that he didn't really even know yet. As parents, we didn't do a lot of date nights. How could we? We couldn't trust just anyone with our kids because if Matthew had a meltdown, they wouldn't know what to do. We had a 3-ring binder of to-go menus in our car because restaurants were a terrible idea. We'd barely make it to the waitstaff bringing our drinks before we'd have to leave. Family vacations? No way. A plane, an amusement park, a different room to sleep in with different smells and feels. So we managed. We lived in a world of things we couldn't do. My mom saw a news story that introduced me to Canines, and from that day on, hope bloomed. It kept us going for 4.5 long years on a wait list for our miracle. He came in the form of a 55-pound black lab, who for all intents and purposes still believes he's a lap dog. I'll never forget the day that we introduced Matthew to Lloyd in the school office. We called Matthew out of school a couple minutes early, and as he rounded the corner and saw us, we asked him if he wanted to meet his dog. He was just a little guy, and he teared up in happiness and said, "Really? He's here? He's here and he's all mine?" And with tears streaming down my face, I nodded and watched the best embrace a little boy and his dog could ever have. A bond was made that day, and our lives took a turn again. But a great one. In the past 7.5, almost 8 years, Lloyd has been in our lives. Matthew has changed. He's grown so much and learned so much. He hasn't had a meltdown in a really long time. He hasn't kicked and scratched and clawed at anyone in a long time. And he melts into Lloyd like a security blanket, and Lloyd licks him, lays on him, rolls with him, and they giggle. And I say they giggle because they both make these really silly noises. Since Lloyd, we've traveled to theme parks, on planes, road trips, water parks. Matthew's been to restaurants galore. We've all gone to Molly's dance competitions with loud music. And even though he wears headphones, he stays and claps for his big sister because he's so proud. We go to movies where we put the feet up and Lloyd hops up to cuddle in for the movie, even though we know he's really searching for popcorn. Matthew has gone to sleepovers at friends' houses. Lloyd cuddles with mom during those nights, but Matthew has friends, good ones, that don't think he's strange and love being around him for who he is. He's found his people. Now, at 6 feet tall, his needs have changed, but they're still the best of friends. Canines is full of love and miracles that they spread around to those that need them. And they can't do it without volunteers. I tell our story to motivate and support Canines and help showcase the amazing things and changes in lives that can be made by these 4-legged friends. Lloyd has changed our lives in ways that we never could have hoped for. There's that word again, hope. We really hope that telling our story today can motivate you all to possibly work with Canines in a way that is extremely special. I can't do what I do as a mom every day without Lloyd and without Canines, and I hope that more families can experience what we have. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you for sharing your story. And after all these years, it still brings so much emotion. And I think we feel that just listening to you. I'm so happy for Lloyd and for your family. And I think we're going to hear from Lindy now about the training for these pups.
Absolutely. So thank you all for being here. It's a tough act to follow right here. As Sheila mentioned, autism assist dogs there are unicorn dogs within our program. It's much easier for us to look at a dog in final training and really imagine them doing some hearing assist or mobility or diabetes assist, those types of skills. But autism is really it takes a unique dog to fit that mold. They really need to be as bulletproof as they possibly can be. And that is really where a lot of our foster homes come into the equation. Having these dogs living in homes with younger children, with the activity, the noise, the excitement, sometimes the tears, everything that goes along with that. These dogs having exposure to that really does prepare them and set them on a better path. But they, as bulletproof as they need to be, they also need to be very sensitive and kind of be ready to act when needed. And so, that could be by, interrupting, applying some pressure to help do some interruptions when that might be needed, but also it might be to just stand still when a child has decided that they want to go, they're going to take off, and that dog needs to really be that anchor and that tether and hold that child in place. So, they really have to have skills on all ends of the spectrum, which really makes these dogs special. So we have our PAW program, which is our Pups and Worship program that we are initiating, and I think that's what you're seeing on the screen right now. We have dogs that are coming out of one of our puppy raiser prison programs. So these dogs are a little bit older. They're between about 10 and 12 months of age. And we're really looking for long-term foster homes for them that can give them that type of experience. To really give them an opportunity to be in that home environment and to work through all of that training that is needed to prepare them for their eventual client. We provide food, we provide veterinary care, monthly preventatives. We do flea and tick and heartworm preventatives for all of our dogs, and we do supply all of that. All of our dogs, also before they're placed with the client, they do go through some health testing. We do some x-rays, certifications of their eyes, things of that nature, and that is all covered through our program as well. We provide training, so although these dogs come out of a prison program really having a lot of solid basic obedience skills, we as staff come out and provide training to you to really kind of bridge that gap between working in a very predictable prison environment to then taking them out into the world. As you saw, Lloyd was out, he was flying, he was in restaurants, he was in the emergency room. All of those things, the dogs need to experience that type of situation on a variety of levels to be prepared to do that along with their client. We also provide, we realize that everyone has lives. It sounds great, yes, I'll take in a dog, but now we have a family vacation or we have a family emergency that popped up. Life happens and we realize and recognize that. And so we do have a small army of foster homes who take in dogs for shorter periods of time and foster them when that is a need. And you'll hear from Andrea here in a bit. She does a lot of that for us. And then we also have co-fostering options available. So, if you think, hey, this is something we're really interested in, but we do a fair amount of travel, or we have a lot of activity in our home, we can work with you to find a co-foster who can help kind of lighten that load a little bit and share in some of that training.
So what you're talking about is, as Sheila said, a lot of hands go on the dogs in order to get to, like Christine's family. And they're really looking for families to help them foster dogs. Everything is taken care of. I mean, really, from food to vet appointments to even having somebody step in and take care of the dog if you're away. And so that's really why we're here, to shorten that gap between having to wait 4.5 years for your dog to, you know, having more families be willing to take in a dog for a few months? Is it 4 months?
Yes, so the typical initial foster length is 6 months. And what typically happens at that point, at the end of the 6 months, the dogs really still are not completely ready to come in for final training. So what we always do with our long-term fosters is we have check-ins throughout that 6-month period, but at 6 months, we'll check in with folks and see how things are going. Is it still a good match for the family? Is it still a good fit for the dog? Because we really want this to be a wonderful experience for everyone that's involved, dog and family. And then our fosters have the opportunity to either continue to foster that dog until they come in for final training, assuming that things are going well, or that dog can move in with another foster home until that point when they're ready for the final training phase.
Excellent. And now we have an amazing family, the Weinerobs. We want to introduce you to it. Why don't you introduce yourself and then tell us about what you have done to foster these dogs and how many you've fostered.
So my name is Andrea, and I brought my daughter, Julia. This is Julia. So we are exactly the type of family that you all are. We helped raise or foster several dogs, I guess, 70-ish. We've had in and out of our home over the last 10 years, I think. And it started out as a bribe when we told Julia at age 5 that we were moving from Miami to Minnesota. We said, we're going to move, but we'll get you a dog. And it didn't quite turn out that way. So I have been driving to work, and I passed Canines every day on Highway 169, and was wondering, what is that place? What is that place? So finally I just figured out what it was, and when I went in there and they explained what it was, I said, okay, sign me up, sounds fun. And they actually just handed me a dog. I said, what? This can't possibly be true. I don't get it. So yeah, they just gave me this dog. It was Paisley, and Julia was 5, maybe 6 at that time, and my other one was 2. It wasn't an autism evaluation. I don't think they even had something like that at that point. So we just brought this dog home, and it was amazing. Eventually we figured out what it was about the dogs, that there's a difference between a good dog and a bulletproof dog. There's a difference between the temperament of a dog and how they react to, I hesitate to even say children, but small humans, because of the way children act. And I kept wondering, what is going on here? And a lot of these dogs are not around kids. They're just raised by, puppy raised by retired people or in a prison where clearly there's no small children around. So for a lot of these dogs to come out and see children for the very first time, you really are able to see, wow, they're either really scared, they don't want to be around them, or they have an instinct to go to them because they're in need. And those are the dogs you can identify after they've been in your home for a couple of days. That's the dog that you want to have working in this field. And so after, I don't know, 20-something dogs, I kind of said to, well, one in particular, his name was Dryden, and my daughter, who you can see there, who's the younger one, quite rambunctious and had a lot of meltdowns often. She, at one point, locked herself in the pantry and was screaming and having a major tantrum, and Dryden was there, standing there with her, and she opened the door, pushed him away, and locked herself in the pantry, and I was taking pictures of this happening. You know, as hard as it was for me to do, I was letting it happen. And he just stood there, and then he laid down while she was outside the door, waiting. What's happening? What's going on? You know, most dogs would be like, I'm out. You know, nobody's gonna feed me or play with me, so I'm out of here. But he waited and waited and waited while it was going on until she came out. I don't even know how long it took, but, and I said, at that point I went back to Candy and I said, there's something going on here. These dogs, this dog needs to be with kids. And I guess, I don't know, they started saying, okay, well, then can you look at this dog? Can you take this dog? Can you take this dog? So that's kind of how this thing sort of developed, at least for us. That's Paisley, and that's Julia. That was our very first.
Andrea and Julia, was it hard to give up the dog after 6 months?
That's a good question. That's what a lot of people have asked, and why doesn't the kid have kids?
I think, well, I don't really remember, but at first it was kind of hard, and it's like kind of hard every time we have to give one up. We have one right now, and there's one that, I was gonna sound awful, but ones that are like easier to give up than others. It sounds so bad, but yeah, some of them are easier to give up, and then we have our own at home. So I mean, I think I've always been in the mindset that we're always gonna have one at home, and we're always gonna get another one. And just like an example, like I guess recently we had one named Iggy, and we had him for like a week, and we weren't even supposed to have him. And that, he was so hard to give up. I loved him so much. And we had him, I think we had him for a total of 3 weeks, and it was awful. It was so bad to give him up. But it's good to know that they're going to somebody who's gonna need them more than I am, and he's gonna make a really good impact in the world. He's gonna help somebody. So I think that makes it a little bit easier. But
Yeah, and if you look at the screen, here's a graduation of one of the dogs that really made an impact on our family a lot, and you know, actually went to do autism work, and the benefit for your family is that telling your children what the dog is going to go do, and seeing the dog graduate and going to the family is totally worth whatever tears your child is going to have. So I think that's probably the best thing. I mean, it was hard for them to understand when they were little, but I said, you're doing a good thing, and we're going to have another one. And our dog was actually a career change dog from Canines. It's another thing that we can talk about if you have questions about that, but that is what's worth it right there.
Yeah, and what have your dogs gone on to become?
Unfortunately, a small percentage have been autism, but I mean, all of the different specialties, I kind of don't follow the others unless they're autism. I get very excited when they actually do that, because it's such a hard specialty to find a dog for, and we really need more people to evaluate them, to identify those dogs that are really going to be good for that.
And it's such a life lesson for your family. I mean, once they do this is a mission you do together, and all the ups and downs of, you know, and the responsibility. And in the end, you know, you're giving up your dog to go to somebody like Christine and her family. And I mean, just hearing Christine's story, you just know that you're doing something better.
Yes, that's the whole part of it. That was the benefit. It's a win-win-win, win-win-win-win-win. I mean, everything about Canines is a win. So,
Yeah.
I would say too that as a, my voice is hearing, so I would say too that for the people, whether you're puppy raising or whether you're a graduate teen, you really have an opportunity to be a part of a community. It is not just you have this dog and then you're done. I mean, you really have resources and you have other people that, are in the same situation as you. And when you're puppy raising, you have people that are doing it. There are Facebook groups and you can connect, and there's just really, you're not on your own. So if you have questions, other people have had the same questions, they can reach out. And so there's just a really great community involved in it. And you're just not alone.
When there was a group of us that we were talking about, just brainstorming, how do we shorten this wait list? What are the ways in which we can try to get more dogs conditioned to be autism? And it was literally in a meeting at Canines, and I said, let's go to the churches. Go to the churches where families go, where families are looking for opportunities to give and serve as a family. I mean, that's what we as parents are all trying to do, is teach our kids that it's not all about us in the world. There are people that need help, and maybe that help is financial, maybe it's working at a food shelf, maybe it's, fill in the blank. But for some people, it'll be dogs. I mean, look at the Weinreb family, 70 dogs. This has become a part of their family culture. And so coming to Trinity, I have a lot of friends here already, and I'm like, I want to go to Trinity because what better place to go to than a community of faith? So we hope that this morning has inspired you to talk to other people, share our story. We're coming again on Wednesday night to try to get to more young families, but truly the intent is to create a community here within Trinity where you can be fosters together and have a common bond. I don't know about you, but whether you attend one worship service or maybe you might not go every single week, so you meet different people, this would be maybe an opportunity to connect with people with whom you may not cross paths otherwise. So I'm just so grateful that you invited us to come and that you're going to be maybe our first, pilot program for the Pups and Worship program. We do, sorry, real quick, we do have a similar program in corporate environments. It's also called Pups at Work. We have our very first corporate partner that started with us last summer at Best Buy. We're also branching out to Medtronic and other big corporations. So there's that entire program too. We won't talk about that today, but come see us if you want to talk about either one.
Questions?
If you have a pet dog, do you have to get rid of it to take on a foster dog?
You do not. I would say the vast majority of our foster homes do have other pets in the home. We will come out and conduct a meet and greet. We'll bring one of our program dogs, like Riggs, out to meet your personal pets and just ensure that they're comfortable and welcoming of another dog coming in and looking at their toys and maybe drinking out of their water dish. But we will make sure everyone is appropriate with one another, but that's not a problem at all. Yes, cats as well. Any pets that your dog would interact with, we would conduct that meet and greet.
Just from a breeding perspective, I mean, do you have dedicated breeders that you go through? Clearly, Riggs is a stressed out pup.
We actually have our own internal breeding program. So most of the dogs that are within our program have been intentionally bred and very carefully planned within our breeding stock of dogs. We're also part of the IBC, which is International Breeding Cooperative. It gets the international designation because it includes Canada, but it is nationwide as well as Canada breeding cooperative where we do share genetics. So we will share dogs and just to really ensure that our breeding program is as strong and as healthy as it can be. We do, however, also accept donations in from breeders. So some of our dogs do come in from breeders. Poodles. We have some poodles in our program. They are always donated in from a breeder, but as far as our breeding program, we breed purebred Labrador Retriever and Lab Golden Retriever mixes primarily.
Because of the temperament?
Because of the temperament, yeah.
What is the responsibility of the family in terms of training? Do they just live with you as a normal pet would, or are you actually responsible for some of the training?
Good question. We would ask that you come to at least one of our training opportunities per month. With the POD programs, we typically have a group of people who are all participating within the same organization, and so then that allows us to come to you to provide training. So we would do some type of, we would select a site, but we would have an on-site training that we would offer. We do also offer training opportunities at our campus, which is in New Hope. We do group outings where we take small groups out into the world and practice those skills, not just out in the world, but also with other dogs present, because that can be something that they need to work through. But we do provide you with support and help through all of that, an entire training process.
Well, thank you, Julia, for being a crazy kid to get this dog to really see what the dog's capabilities are. And Riggs, I'm wondering about you.
And this is a very important skill. This is, when we talk about training, I think a lot of people are like, oh boy, training is so much effort. This is what we call do nothing. It is a skill that the dogs need to learn, and you can literally take them in public and work on this. Okay, so it doesn't always have to be intensive, right? Being here and just waiting until a client needs him is a really important skill for him.
And just for a dog that is, he's a growing dog, and for him to get under the chairs is really something as well. It is a good party trick. So anytime we can have dog tricks, we love that.
I always tell people too that we have, when he's not in uniform, Lloyd knows. Lloyd knows he's not in uniform, and he is a normal black lab. He loves to play fetch and tug and all of the things, and he has so much fun, and he is more spoiled than any dog I've ever met. And so, as much as some people are like, oh, he just looks sad, I'm like, no, he's working, but when he's not working, boy, watch out. He's still a really awesome dog when he's at home.
And it's not sadness, it's seriousness. Yes, they do understand, they put out their cape, it's work, it's like putting on a suit and tie, right? Yeah. And we do currently have over 100 applicants on our wait list for autism assist dogs. So it is definitely a need within our program.
What percentage of your dogs actually go on to be families? Are there some that don't do environments?
Yes. As Andrea had mentioned, sometimes dogs, either temperament-wise or they could have a health condition that might not even be a major health condition, but could perhaps be something that's too expensive for us to ask the client to take on. So those dogs do end up being what we call career changed. But as far as a percentage, about 60% of our dogs go on to do work, and it's in other assistance dog industry, or I should say organizations, they have about a 40% success rate. So we're actually doing pretty well.
Well, thanks to each of you for what you're doing. I mean, you just never know where your mission might be. And I think this has introduced us to something that is new and that there is a need for. And I know that they will take questions afterward, and so will Riggs. So thank you so much for coming today.